Yo, what's up gamers? It's your boy Daily here, and today we're going to be talking about the truth behind Men of War 2. That means we're going to be talking about the pros and the cons of the game, what I felt about the private playtest as well as the public playtest. They were basically the exact same thing, and overall, just how I'm not really feeling the game right now. In all disclosure, I was invited to a private playtest event just a few days before the public playtest went live, and I had a great time then. It was really good to play with some other YouTubers, Sherman, Duplex Heated, Helping Hans, and then also the developers themselves were really great people. They were super nice. They were open to feedback, which I liked, and it seemed like they were, really trying to make a game that would adhere to the likes of the wide community. It seemed like they really wanted to make something different, something fun, and I applaud them for that, for taking on that challenge. Although I do think that there are some serious problems with the game. But before we get into the problems of the game, I do want to talk about the pros of the game first. First and foremost, I'm super pleased that they've managed to actually implement airplane warfare in this game. Planes and, fighter pilots and stuff like that in previous Men of War games were kind of non-existent. We started to get them a little bit in Assault Squad 2 with some bombing raids, and then they stepped it up with Call to Arms Gates of Hell, where the bombing raids became more frequent, more effective, stuff like that, but you could never really combat them. AA guns never really worked or anything like that, and it just felt like an easy dub to just call in a bomber. That's no longer the case. You can use AA guns. I will get into how planes are way overpowered and way overused right now, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So yeah, the introduction of planes and sort of air warfare in this game I think is really, really cool. I'm also digging a lot of the maps of the game. I think the maps are looking really, really nice and interesting, especially the coast map was really fun. Right now, I haven't played every single map. I tried to, but the lobby system just was not working and no one was joining my games, and the other games that I was trying to join were either full or completely empty. It was only through the matchmaking that I was actually able to play games, and I kept on getting the winter map every single time. Like out of like the 10 games I've played, 8 of them were on the winter map. It was absolutely crazy. I don't know what the deal is with that. But yeah, I did enjoy the maps. I thought they were pretty cool. I thought they had dynamic leveling, so, things, of course, would get destroyed, like regular Men of War and stuff like that, but it also had, nice hills that would provide cover for both sides of the map, and they kept it interesting with the placement of buildings and things like that. I thought it was pretty cool. I also think the way that they designed building warfare was a lot better now. Previously, in Men of War Assault Squad 2, you put soldiers into the individual windows of buildings, and now it's almost more like Company of Heroes, where you put the whole squad into a building, and they do the fighting from there. Because the window building fighting was really pretty busted in the old Men of War, it just never really worked. I'm glad that they adjusted that. But I think that brings us to sort of the first of the negative points here, in that this game doesn't really have much of an identity. Originally, way back in the day, they said that they were going to try and make a game, more akin to Company of Heroes, and I can see where they are lying with that. It feels like you can't do individual soldier movements anymore. Everything is kind of done as a squad. You can do individual soldier movements, but it's not really worth it. First of all, the infantry is very, very spongy. It takes a lot of shots to kill them, but they also don't feel effective in the slightest. It feels like infantry are just kind of like there. So if you're playing as the infantry battalion, you're not playing as anything. You're basically worthless to me. I don't know. That was like the worst of the battalions to me. The balancing in this is just not there. They need to balance it way, way better. But the infantry just felt like crap. And that was a real shame for me, because I was always in Assault Squad 2 and in Gates of Hell an infantry style player. I loved sneaking infantry around, hiding them in bushes, utilizing AT grenades and salvaging from tanks and things like that I blow up to get more dynamite, stuff like that. That's not really something you can do in this as much. Infantry feels very sluggish. It feels like they're almost unusable. The only thing that they're good for is like defending areas, plopping down a squad of 5, and eventually they'll get like bombed out or something anyway. But other than that, it feels like the infantry are just kind of cannon fodder there, and honestly, they're used mainly for line of sight to push with a tank because tank's line of sight is so crappy. But other than that, they're just not that effective, and that's kind of a shame. Really, you just kind of set them up on some barricades and leave them there. And that's another thing with infantry, is that the cover system has gotten really bad. I did mention this to the devs that I felt like there wasn't any cover to use, and I don't think they fully understood what I was saying. They were basically like, oh, whenever you see the highlight of a cover, you know, you can go send your soldiers towards that. And I was like, no, I get it. I have, how many hours do I have in Men of War right now? Like, I understand how the cover system actually works. I have 3,281 hours in Men of War, and then in Gates of Hell, I have 228 hours. So, you know, I get the cover system. I understand, but it was more so that there is no cover. There's only these buildings, which are great. You can build your own barricades and trenches, although they're kind of glitchy, especially the trenches. They didn't really work for me all that well. And I didn't love them. I liked the old Men of War trench system. In this trench system, the trenches act like buildings that you put them in, which wasn't great. And then like fallen logs and stuff, it felt like in Men of War, every single fallen log was a piece of cover. In this, I couldn't find any. And rocks in Men of War, every rock was a piece of cover. Every bush was a piece of cover. In this, there's like none. I really didn't like that. It made infantry feel even more useless than it was already feeling. And then there's sort of the artillery battalions that you could play as. And the artillery battalions were probably really the most fun for me in the first 2 games I played with them. It was really fun to set up your artillery. You could pretty much shoot from anywhere on the map, which is kind of overpowered, but at the same time, like, enemies could just straight up see your artillery the whole time it was firing and stuff like that. It wasn't like in Men of War where it was hidden and you had to go find it, which I really missed that. It feels a lot more arcadey where you know where all the units are in this game. There's no secrets. There's no intense RTS hunting or anything like that. And so, you know, the artillery was really overpowered in that you could just fire from anywhere, and it was large explosions. It could take out tanks and stuff like that. But then the planes would just counter it. Planes upon planes upon planes. There was planes every 5 seconds. Literally, you look at the playtests, and it's like there's a billion planes on the battlefield, and not enough AA guns to take them all out, or the AA guns just wouldn't shoot at them. Especially the armored AA guns, like in the trucks and stuff like that, those just didn't work. And so it felt like, you know, if you weren't getting squashed by artillery, you were getting squashed by planes. It felt like infantry and tanks really didn't hold that much of a presence on the battlefield, infantry in particular. So as artillery, I think I had the most fun because I had to sneak around my artillery. Like, I had to fire, and then I had to equip it to like a Ford truck or a universal carrier and carry it away to a new firing location. And that was really fun to micromanage that for one game, but you don't have that much impact on the battlefield other than like trying to take out enemy artillery. So you can't really play front lines or anything like that to the fullest effect. You're really a supporting player, which is fine, but you're just kind of in the back, not really supporting. You're just taking out enemy artillery before they take out your artillery, and then neither side is really impacting the actual battlefield, unless of course the enemy artillery people suck, and then you're really good, which happened a few times for me. But then it just kind of got boring moving around the artillery pieces and stuff like that over and over and over again. It just got a little bit old. I became very bored of playing artillery very quickly. And so then I started playing more tank. And I think tank divisions were probably the most fun for me in the long term. They still weren't great though. First of all, there's a huge balancing issue between the nations. Like, German tanks were so good, Russian tanks were like decent, and then the American tanks felt like crap. And that was how it went every single battle. It got really obnoxious. You know, it felt like your shots were just bouncing off of German tanks, doing absolutely nothing. it was not that fun to, have to deal with the Germans. So I mainly played as the Germans. But then the other problem with tank warfare was you really needed infantry to back you up in order to get that line of sight. And the infantry players, again, the infantry is so crappy that they just couldn't do anything, and there was very little coordination between infantry players and tank players. And the tanks did get some infantry units, which was great, but not a whole lot. So you kind of just lost those infantry, and then you were kind of blindly moving your tank through enemy territory and stuff like that, which was kind of a pain. And overall, like, the direct control of this, it didn't feel as good as in Men of War Assault Squad 2, or the best direct control we've ever gotten is Gates of Hell, by far, bar none. And this felt like a step back. It would be like you were in, direct control overview mode, and then if you scrolled a bunch, you would enter into third person mode. I much preferred where you had a toggle button to go into third person mode. That made it way, way easier. But this just felt worse. And then on top of that, I think it was the tank division. Diplex Heated, in the last of the playtest games we played privately, I think it was the tank division he was playing as. He ran out of units halfway through the game and then just sat there. Like, there's no units to call in after you're out of units. So he expended his units in 15 minutes, and he did a lot in those 15 minutes. He was pressuring, he was playing hard, he was playing basically hard assault. And, we got pretty far in that time, and then he ran out of units, and then, we lost because they were playing slower than us and more defensively. And so, really, the units affect the pacing of the game a lot. You're basically forced to play a moderate to very slow pace in order to win, because aggro does not work. You will run out of units, and it just kind of sucks because Diplex was just kind of sitting there doing nothing. He wasn't having any fun. He wasn't doing anything. So we suggested, like, hey, maybe you should make it so you get some free conscripts or something really crappy, just so they can at least have some influence on the battlefield when they run out of units. They should just have, like, unlimited conscripts or something like that. But the devs seemed pretty against that. So I think that's a pretty major problem too. On top of all of the, I've gone through the divisions and stuff like that. On top of all of that, I think there's just overall an inherently bad system behind the multiplayer right now. The Assault Squad 2 system was so fun and so in-depth, and you got to respond to every other player's playstyle however you liked. Every single unit for that nation was available to you at that time. If you needed to counter artillery, you could do it by getting tanks, you could do it by getting cars, you could do it by getting infantry, you could do it by getting your own artillery. You could choose anything that you wanted, but in this game, you were locked into playing with basically like 6 or 7 units for the entirety of the game, and you basically get no variety of units too. You're either the tank guy, the artillery guy, or the infantry guy. I guess you can customize these as you level up and stuff like that, but as of right now, it feels very stuck. Like, if you enter into a game, you are stuck with that stuff, and you can't respond to what the enemy brings in real time because you're stuck with the stuff that you brought. I understand where they're going with this, trying to make it so, like, you really have to cater to your playstyle before you enter into matches and stuff like that, but I don't think it works. Bluntly, I do not think that this works. I think the Men of War Assault Squad 2 system was fantastic, and they should have just brought that back with the MP and CP costs. CP was the maximum number of units you could have on the battlefield, and then the MP was the cost of those units, and you'd slowly gain MP as the match went on. In this, you basically unlock tiers of units, and there's the first tier, the second tier, and the third tier, and then you bring out those units as the tiers unlock, and they're slowly, a better tier and a better tier and a better tier. I don't think this works as well as the MP system at all. I think it's not fun, in fact. I found myself really hating this system. To the point where I wasn't enjoying playing because I couldn't adapt to different play styles or play the way I wanted mid-game. It really kind of blew. This was the biggest problem I think I had was with this system. There's also, of course, the problem of the UI. The UI looks bad. The UI looks like crap. I don't know what happened. It's like it's like how a bunch of logos are trying to go super minimalist. you know? Like, you had the old, like, Pringles guy, and now he's like a dumbed down Pringles guy, or you know, any logo. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it before. It felt like they did that with the UI. Like, they tried to go super minimalist, and it just ended up looking really bad. But I do have to say, one thing that I haven't complimented yet, well, two things, actually. Number one, I loved the game modes. The game modes were fun. They were great. If this had the Men of War Assault Squad 2 system of playing and these game modes, I would be through the moon. This was fantastic. There's one game mode where it's just straight up combat, so that's nothing new. But then their Frontlines game mode was you pushing and pulling on a line of war, and you get certain objectives at certain times during the battle to go and fight. And that was really cool. I really liked that. That was like the best game mode I think I've ever played in a Men of War style game. And then they almost have an old school Men of War Frontline style game, because Frontlines was an original game mode for Men of War Assault Squad 2. But this one is more so like the original. I can't remember what it was called, but it's essentially like the defenders have a bunch of zones that they have to hold, and the attackers have to slowly take those zones. And I thought that was great too. I think the game modes in this are really fun. I think there's a lot of great ideas here, but just overall, I have this bad feeling in my stomach that this is not going to be the game that we want. I think they are a little too much like Company of Heroes, and not in a good way. Like, I don't want Company of Heroes, quite frankly. I want Men of War. I want, like, Men of War Assault Squad 3, essentially. And that's not what we're getting. What we're getting is a weird hybrid that it just doesn't have its own identity. It doesn't feel fleshed out, and it feels not fun to play. I know they're trying really hard, and that's why I really hate making this video, because they're so nice and they're really putting a lot of effort into this game and stuff like that, but it just feels like the game isn't where it should be, and it's not even like little changes would help it. It feels like this is a game I won't play after a few days after launch. But I do have to hand it to the devs that they firmly said no microtransactions in this game. They might do a few DLC, which I am totally cool with DLCs as long as we get good content in them, baby. That's totally fine by me. But they are strictly doing the base game, no microtransactions, and I think that is very admirable. Either way, yeah, I really liked the devs, and I really hope that the playtest shifts, because I don't really like it that much. I've only talked to Pershing about it thus far, and he didn't like it at all. I don't really know how the rest of the community response is. Maybe everyone else loves it. I'm not entirely sure. But as of right now, I'm not a fan. Either way, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Be sure to click that subscribe button for more content, and hit the notification bell if you'd like to be alerted to whenever I live stream or upload. Thanks so much.